Welcome guys to our house. My name's Rob. I'm an architectural designer, one of the directors at Foley Group Architecture. We've got about 22 staff in the architectural department. We've got a landscape and interiors department as well, and a couple of homestar assessors as well, of which I'm one. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Bob for all the hard work and for letting me include my house on the tour. There's definitely some amazing places on the tour and some really high performing ones. This one would probably slip in at more the base level. So a bit of backstory, I've got a family of five, three young girls and a dog and a cat. We were living out in Rangiora quite happily, but doing a lot of commuting because I work in town. Kids were at gymnastics and school in town, so yeah, we're just spending all day in the car. It had been on our long-term plan to live on the hill one day. We love being up and having a bit of a view, so we just brought that forward, probably a little bit earlier than really ideal, which meant our budget was pretty cramped. So we found this site going cheap for obvious reasons. It was pretty steep and hairy, completely overgrown, and a bit of a challenge. But I figured if I can't put a house on it, then I'm probably not worthy of being a designer. So yeah, we pulled the trigger, and yeah, then COVID happened, and we got absolutely slammed by all the issues of building through that post-COVID period of delays and cost increases and everything. So, but through all that, there's some sort of key fundamentals that we weren't prepared to let go of. But we did have to do quite a bit of compromising along the way. So, I guess the key takeaway from this place is get the basics right, do the things that you can't put off till later, and like pre-wire or pre-pipe for things that you can do in the future if you can't get them in house at the time. Also model and test everything if you can. So I've got the advantage of having access to some pretty cool software, so we're able to do some daylight modeling, to test some of the glazing, to make sure that we're not overdoing it, because obviously glazing is as good as you can do with your low E and argon and double glazing. It's never going to be as good as a well insulated wall. So got some views that we wanted to make the most of, but we didn't want any unnecessary glazing. We're also tucked into the bank here, so we don't get a lot of morning sun. So things like the skylights, for example, we did test whether or not to put those in. Big hole in the thermal envelope, so that is a compromise there, but we get so much morning sun and solar gain through them, and we can also open the central one to dump some heat in the summer, and yeah, then we just use that stack effect of the stairwell to get some of that heat up and out. So the structure for this one is 90mm timber framing with the strapping and lining on the inside. That strapping and lining, I think, is the absolute bottom line to bridge all that structure. We've got rid of the dwangs, but you're always going to get some situations where you can't avoid some double and triple studs. So as long as you've got that strapping on the inside, then you can bridge all of that, and it's not such a big issue. Recessing the windows into the thermal envelope. So these windows are a Fairview thermally broken suite, so certainly nothing flash. Just basically what you'll get in any spec home, but by recessing them into the envelope, it does improve that thermal performance quite a lot. And you can probably see too in some of the window jams how that's working. You'll see some flashings right around the windows. These two here they're actually set right back into a second line of framing to give us some eaves, because obviously we've got a big gable at the end. We don't get a lot of shading. Even if we'd put eaves on there, we wouldn't have really got any shading from them. So by tucking them back in there, that gives us a wee bit of shading from the afternoon sun. What else is there to talk about in here? We've got So a few compromises that we made just because we wanted to. Things like the fireplace. Obviously, that's a big hole in the thermal envelope as well, and it does draw a lot of air out, so it compromises the air tightness. But for us, we had a pretty plentiful supply of firewood on site, so it means we can heat the place from the natural resources that we've got here. And things like the nice big pivot door on the front, that's just something I wanted to do. It's obviously not very airtight, but yeah, it's just one of those nice to have. So I think once you know the rules, you can break them, as long as you're aware of what the implications of those things are, rather than just blindly going ahead and doing things without really thinking about it. We've got rainwater storage from the roof. We've got our hot water heating is an electric cylinder, but it's a wetback type, and it's pre-piped for an air to water heat pump. So when we can afford it, we'll put a heat pump on so that we can run that. Obviously, with 3 daughters and a wife who like long hot showers, that's probably where most of our energy use actually goes, is on the hot water heating. It's something that I think people can forget because they get so caught up in the thermal envelope and the space heating, but there's an awful lot of power goes on water heating, and I'm sure the guys from Warmth and Z will have a bit of a talk to you today about some of the options there as well. I think that's most of the features. So the roof structure, that's through here, it's a skillion ceiling, but we've strapped and lined under that as well. So we've got insulation bridging those rafters. And then through the back of the house, that's a standard truss type ceiling. So we've got 2 layers of insulation there, one sitting between the trusses, and then another layer running across them so that you're bridging those trusses there. And the ground floor is timber, and that's a similar system as well. So we've got insulation between the joists, and then another layer of strapping underneath that with insulation bridging those joists, and then some eco-ply just protecting that from wind washing, just to get that. And so timber subfloors are they're really good because you can insulate really, really well. You can also change pipework quite easily. So our ground floor is set up so that we can, if we want to, kit it out as a separate unit. We've both got parents that are getting older, and we're thinking that one day one of them may need to come and live with us, and in that case we can quite easily refit that ground floor as a granny flat for one of our parents. I think with the way things are going with the housing crisis, we do need to start looking a lot more into generational living, and start changing our mindsets about these standalone homes and everybody rattling around in big houses. Yeah. Any questions before you have a wander around?
So your heating, is it?
Heating is, at the moment, it's all the fireplace. So we've got a heat recovery ventilation system in here. So that's drawing air in from the bathrooms, the laundry downstairs, the ensuite downstairs, but also in from the lounge where the fireplace is. So that just allows us to, as we're bringing the fresh air in, pass that through a heat exchanger, take that heat out so that the fresh air that's getting pumped into the bedrooms is warmed by that exiting air. And we will be putting a heat pump for space heating in at some point as well, just to boost that, and so that we don't need to rely on the fire all the time.
And how's it been over this winter?
It's been amazing. So there was actually a period we hadn't got code compliance, so we couldn't use our fire for a while. So we had to get an oil column heater in, and we were able to heat. So there's a 278 square metre house, take off the garage, but we were able to heat the whole house with an oil column heater, and that ventilation system was just enough to move that heat around.
And are you thinking about putting solar panels on?
Yeah, we are. If we do, it'll be a ground-based array rather than a ceiling. We're obviously quite fortunate. We've got quite a bit of land here, but our orientation isn't great for solar, because north is pretty much straight that way, and our roof form's like that. So ideally, you want a north-facing roof so that you can get your angle of your panels directly facing there. So we'd be looking at putting them down down lower on the hillside, finding a spot that gets all day sun. And the other benefit about ground-based arrays is you can keep them clean, you can maintain them so they perform at their maximum efficiency all the time.
Cool.
I love the fireplace. It's not very Superhome PC probably, but the fact that you've got it, that's for aesthetics.
Yeah.
But
Well, the other thing that Superhome talks about is resilience, and so for us, it gives us heating and cooking in a power cut. So
also flexibility.
Exactly. Yeah. But my wife, she does say, she constantly tells me we need to get that heat pump because I need to be able to press a button and not muck around with the fire. So yeah, it's definitely a high priority for us to get that in at some stage. Yeah.
Particularly then Christchurch, I think it's really important to have a nice
Exactly. Yeah.
Your rainwater harvesting, what are you using it for?
At the most, just for the garden.
Okay.
So yeah, we do have. I guess we have the option of putting a pump on it to get it back up and into the house for flushing toilets and washing. But at the moment, it'll just be for the garden.
And
Yeah.
what sort of amount of storage did you decide was the right amount?
Well, council decided for us actually.
Okay.
So I'd initially put in a 5,000 litre tank in my drawings, but because we're on the hill, what I didn't realise is there's a requirement for 9,000 litres of detention. So I had to add another tank, and council requires me to have that on a restricted outlet, so that what it's designed to do is fill up in the first period of a storm event, and then gradually trickle out over the next sort of 24, 48 hours to completely empty so that it's ready for the next storm event. So that's what we've put in, but there'll be a tap going on the outlet because I can't see the point in all that valuable rainwater
water
getting,
going away.
going down the drain.
And what about the engineering that was required to have those tanks? Was there quite a lot of work in?
Not so much for the tanks. They're just seismically restrained on pads under the house. The engineering that we had to do around here was mostly for cutting into the hill, and there's a few bits of steel in here that we couldn't avoid. So that was where most of our engineering involvement was. A lot of drilling into rock up here for our timber landscape retaining down there. That was something that we were going to leave till after we'd done the build, but we quickly realised that we were going to be cutting out a whole lot of earth here, and we didn't want to cut that off site, so we did that retaining wall first, so that we could then cut and backfill, so the cut and fill on site is neutral. There's a gabion wall running around there that's all filled with rock that came out of the hill, all hand filled and carted. So yeah, you need to appreciate that. So there's little things like that you can do. Yeah. So feel free to have a wander around. So what we did was, most of the house is pretty simple. So we obviously did a little bit with the front stairwell on that, just for that wee bit of wow factor. But then the kids' bedrooms down the back is all pretty basic spec home type stuff, and our master suite is downstairs. Some people have asked us, why have you put the master downstairs? Usually you put the kids downstairs. For us, we can get away from things down there, especially as they hit teenage years and start having friends over. We can sort of retreat down there. And also though, being tucked into the hillside, we can only get a couple of rooms with exterior walls down there. So to do 3 bedrooms down there, we would have run out of space. So that's the other reason it's up here.